Chainsaw Man is a manga drawn by Tatsuki Fujimoto, whom my brain keeps trying to put in the same drawer as Nobuyuki Fukumoto, the author of Kaiji, just because I love both of them and they have a similar last name. With its first chapter published in Weekly Shonen Jump in 2018, Chainsaw Man's rise to prominence can only be described as meteoric, with an anime adaptation by Studio Mappa scheduled to be released sometime this year. When this adaptation was first announced, I thought, fine, I will read through the manga that everyone is talking about, especially as everyone says it's a finished story as of the end of part 1. So I did! And it turns out a man who is allegedly the same age as me has created a timeless, peerless work of art that will be etched into my very bones for all eternity and is pretty much a perfect story, fully using its medium of choice with not a single drop of ink wasted on something subpar. So, you know, that was a bit of a kick in the dick for my ego. Chainsaw Man is the story of Denji, a teenage boy so deep into debt incurred by his dad that he had to sell his eyeball and one of his testicles to even make a dent in it. Denji dropped out of school and got to work to pay the debt to the Yakuza off, killing devils. For, you see, in this world, devils from hell sometimes pop up on the surface and are generally a menace. And the more the source of a devil's power is feared, the more power it has. So you get dog devils, your mother-in-law devils, and the most powerful of them all, gun! You might think, wow, how does society function largely similar to the real world we know, with literal forces of evil running around? But we already live in a world where, on average, 1,271 people are victims of homicide every day. And that's not even counting war casualties. So, really, what change is adding some devils into the mix? Denji is not alone, being helped by Pochita, the dog with a chainsaw for face devil that he helped out one time. But of course the Yakuza, in their honorable conduct, decide to set Denji up to get even more money. Left to die, Pochita fuses with his heart to save him. Have you ever read or watched Devilman? If your answer is yes, you know what comes next. That's all chapter 1, before we even meet the ensemble cast of personas like Makima, Aki or Power, forfeit all wealth to her human. The term Chainsaw Man pacing became a bit of a meme for some time, because this manga goes! To call the tempo of new events showing up and being resolved breakneck would only be inaccurate because you don't break necks with a chainsaw, you cut them off. Which is honestly one of the biggest strengths of the manga. Fujimoto explicitly intended to include as many striking, memorable images in the manga as he could, and boy did he! Every chapter there is some image that just stays with you. But Tidu, won't it be forgotten if the scene isn't given the time to set? Just don't turn the page, silly? Which, admittedly, is one of the reasons I'm a bit worried about the anime adaptation. Like, how long do you stay on Aki bribing Denji and Power with a chewing gum to let it etch into someone's brain? A second? 5 seconds? As long as it took Shinji to crush his boyfriend in Evangelion? Right, speaking of characters, god I love them. There is so much depth to each and every one. Denji is the most relatable protagonist in manga, wanting to use his newfound powers to eat good food and grab a titty. But despite those simple motivations and brash attitude, there's never a moment where he feels predictable. In fights he tries the craziest shit like lighting himself on fire. In downtime there's moments like him having trouble with reading a menu. He had to drop out of school because of all the debts and that had a serious impact on his literacy, especially considering that Japanese does not have a nice and tidy set of 20-something characters used for all words, like with Latin and Greek alphabets. It's a small moment and one played for slight comedy, but it shows how well thought out he is as a character, even if a really simple one. Then we have people like Makima, who manages to convey almost supernatural charisma and sex appeal with just her choice of words, posing and facial expressions. And her eyes, god, those drove me crazy even before I read the manga. Aki, an abrasive serious senpai of Denji's who is still not above gleefully kicking someone in the balls when prompted. Power, a devil in a human body with the ego and personal hygiene to show for it. Kobeni, a hardened survivor that looks like she's about to burst into tears in every single scene she's in. and so on and so forth. Everyone that shows up is memorable and recognizable, despite most human characters' designs being really down to earth, especially by shonen manga standards. All the praise I can pile on in this non-spoilery part really comes down to Fujimoto's skill as an artist, both in individual drawings and in using the limitations of his medium to his advantage. Like, there's a page where all the panel borders are fingers due to devilish shenanigans. How do you translate that into animation? Or this panel where Denji realizes he took off his clothes despite his last shreds of common sense because a hot girl asked him to. Do you replace the thought bubble with something new or just replicate it? But even aside from that, Chainsaw Man is masterfully drawn. The sketchy, somewhat gritty art style gives it a unique identity, which is a perfect fit to the story, which is gory, juvenile, and once again flies by so fast that you might think that the pages are actually individual teeth of a real chainsaw. Then there's things like shot composition, panel layout, cutaway gags, the incredibly fucked up designs of the devils and the portrayal of violence they leave in their wake. Gory Chainsaw Man. Even if you are watching this after the anime came out and it was a 12 out of 10 absolute banger masterpiece of an adaptation, Gory Chainsaw Man. This manga should be in Louvre for the absolute mastery of the medium it displays. Every chapter, sometimes every page, something creative happens, visually or in dialogue or with how the events on pages unfold. It's really difficult for me to convey just how good this is without resorting to bit-by-bit repetition of a chapter or two. It's a gritty, genuine work of punk. In the sense that Denji is just some punk that got dealt a shitty hand in life and is trying to find what simple happiness he can in a world that tried to kill him only to be saved by turning into a living weapon. Gotta accept the devil into your heart to get out of being a wage slave and have a happy life. What can I say? Some narrative truths are universal. But let's be honest here. I'm not much of a visual person, so I really want to gush about the themes, story, and especially the final 30 or so chapters of part 1 here. So I'll be getting into heavy spoilers now. Go to this timestamp, now visible on the screen, to avoid them. You have exactly however long it will take me to start this chainsaw to disperse. Alright, so why is it a chainsaw? As we mentioned before, the more feared something is, the more power the devil of it gains. And chainsaws are loud, difficult to hold and can fall a tree in a few seconds. If you ever held the tool in your hands, you know it demands respect. But at the same time, this is a pretty irrational fear. Chainsaws are horrible weapons if you think about it. Loud, unwieldy, the teeth are gonna get stuck in the soft tissue of the body. Chainsaw's status as a weapon has been largely fabricated by movies and games. Evil Dead, Gears of War, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Resident Evil 4, all these media played a much bigger role in canonizing the status of the chainsaw. And the reason why this media and Chainsaw Man chose this power tool as the main instrument of violence is one and the same. Cause chainsaws are fucking awesome! For the exact same reasons why they are scary. It's a force of destruction that you can feel in your hands. No gun or sword could have such a presence, be as intimidating as it is. Chainsaws are loud, obnoxious and incredibly powerful. But outside of the context of stylized action against the spawns of hell, they are kinda misplaced. Just like Denji. Which is to say, any association we have with chainsaws is purely emotional. So it's only fitting that the Chainsaw Devil is a force driven, seemingly purely by instinct, barely even able to communicate with others, driven by a desire to help others and be appreciated by them, to hug and be hugged, but unable to do so as a tool of distraction. It's kinda interesting that this power to annihilate seems absolute, just like the coolness and scariness of a real chainsaw completely overrides us from thinking about it as just a tool. The Chainsaw Devil can outright erase concepts by consuming other devils. Nazis in this world? Gone! Good fucking riddance! So it makes absolute sense that the main villain of this story, at least for part 1, is the Control Devil, Makima. Perfect order to oppose an uncontrollable force of chaos. Well, not oppose as much as control it as well. to use its incredible destructive power to create a world without strife. The twist lies in the fact that Makima admires Chainsaw Man, not Denji, important distinction here, and she cannot control someone she perceives as someone greater than her. After all, control is rooted in authority, so her plan is to make Denji, currently in possession of Chainsaw Devil's powers, to become truly powerless. This is one of the two core conflicts of the manga, emotionally speaking. Denji as a person versus Denji as a tool. The boy himself kinda desires the latter. He just wants to be pointed in the right direction and destroy, not having to worry about why he's doing it and getting headpats and food as a reward, like a good papa would. But at the same time, the lengths of this disturb him. To make him truly nothing more than an obedient object is to cut off all of his relationships with other people, to destroy his personality, to rid him of the instincts that drive him. Hell, before heading off for the final battle, Denji outright exclaims that he is Chainsaw Man not to change the world for the better in the hands of someone that knows better, but to eat more and more good food and have so much sex. Denji takes ownership of himself, of his own desires. He does not become a quote-unquote better person by squashing what makes him human. He screams out that he wants more. This greed is the core of his humanity. It's beautiful and to be celebrated. And how does Denji defeat Makima for good? He thinks for himself for the first time in the story, catching her off guard. And then he fucking eats her, but that's not the point I'm driving at here, so yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Or will I? The second core emotional conflict of Chainsaw Man is that of wanting versus getting. Desire plays a huge part in every character's motivation. I generally don't think there's a single ascetic monk among these schmucks, despite appearances of some of them like Aki. As discussed before, Denji wants to squeeze some booba, but the moment he gets his wish very early into the story, he falls into existential dread as it gave him no satisfaction, ultimately realizing that he didn't care about just any pair of tits, he cared about Makima's bazongers specifically. Himeno says she only wants Aki for his body, but it becomes glaringly obvious she cared for his well-being much more than she did about herself in her final moments. Power may shout at the top of her lungs about desiring, well, power and absolute subservience of humanity, but when given her full murder capacity back, she uses it to help Denji and ask him to find her when she reincarnates so that they could be friends again. And so on and so forth. And this is even exemplified with Miss Perfect Control Makima herself. When asked by Denji if she would use his powers to destroy bad movies as well, she says that she would, despite being visibly moved by one relatively simple scene in a movie she watched with Denji after they went to a cinema to binge some obscure stuff. For both Denji and Makima, the surprise of it being touching after watching several movies that didn't do it for them drives them to tears. But that moment of genuine emotional honesty does not match the desire for a perfectly organized world. Is any of this intentional on Fujimoto's side? I mean, probably. I'm sure I'll get someone in the comments telling me how he mentioned in an interview that he only picked chainsaws cause they're cool. But honestly, does it matter? Whether a conscious choice or not, all those decisions added up to the story we have in front of us. A story where people driven by desires find peace not in being free of them, but by being true to what actually drives them and acknowledging it. A story of the struggle between primordial chaos of emotions and the sterility of perfect control over everything, making it the only good adaptation that Shin Megami Tensei games ever got, Gold Star. It's the modern rendition of Devilman. Whereas in Go Nagai's opus, the point is that humanity is worse than even the most vile of supernatural devils, in Chainsaw Man, the powers of things that scare us can be taken control of and used for good. But good is not viewed as a utilitarian get rid of all the bad things forever, but rather the ability for change and self-realization. The absolutely horrifying demonic act of cannibalism is portrayed as an act of love. Not as aggression, but to allow the control devil to reincarnate into the world and give her the connections with people that make up a person. Give her a chance at the same kind of realization that Pochita and Power reached. Chainsaw Man is a story of the delicate balance between taking control of things that terrify us while also not warping them to the point where they no longer resemble themselves. Both externally, like chainsaws, and internally, like ourselves. Or at least part 1 is. Who the hell knows where the story goes after that. Alright fellas, turn off the chainsaws, we got rid of the spoilers devil. Hey, welcome back. Did you enjoy your break? Did it also hit you how similar Denji and Travis are? I swear this was not a deliberate duology on my part, I just really wanted to make a video on Chainsaw Man now. I don't really think I have a final conclusion to reach here that would be satisfying for both audiences here. The line of spoilers is the line between me really liking this manga and me loving this manga. So, let me reiterate. Go read Chainsaw Man! 97 chapters, 11 volumes! That's like the opposite of the typical problem when someone recommends you a shonen manga or anime. If there is even a single piece of horror fiction in your life that you enjoyed, I guarantee that you will like this manga as well. Be it the viscera of Evil Dead, the psychological unease of Silent Hill, the fear of the unknown from Lovecraft's stories. It's all here with its own flavor of gasoline. And it's funny and emotional and thoughtful and visually stunning, and the only thing it misses is music due to its choice of medium. If I could crack open a volume of the manga and hear music playing accompanying each chapter, I would die from the sheer satisfaction of this experience. I am not being objective here, nor do I particularly care for that. I expected a lot from this manga, from all the praise it received, and holy shit did I receive that and more. I just hope that no future chapters will force me to deal with shitty YouTube essay devil, or I will spontaneously combust all on my own. Okay, I think this is the end of the video. It's hard to talk about manga, it's much easier to be aware of your internal processes when playing a game. Please don't expect a lot of that coming from my channel, I don't have the attention span to read things regularly. Anyhow, first of all, this video was not edited by me, it was done by Frog King. Go tell them what a banger job they did in the comments. Or tell them if it sucks, I don't know yet, writing the script comes way before editing. As always, huge thanks to my Patreon supporters, now visible on the screen. They all read Chainsaw Man, so you can tell that they're cool. Next video is going to be on something, no idea what. Wedding planning is terrifying. Maybe that. Are there any games about getting married? Please don't say Catherine. Well, we'll know when we get there. Toodles.